Hi everybody, my name is Leah Palmer and I'm hoping to get a master's in art conservation. And this summer I worked at the Field Museum in Chicago, Illinois as a conservation intern. And here's a work week in my life. So Monday morning I took the train from my apartment to the museum, stopping at museum campus to eat my breakfast, a Lair bar. We love a good portable protein. And I made the 12-minute walk from the train stop to the museum. One of my favorite things about working in a museum is just the aesthetics of it. It's very different from just working in a lab. And one of the things that's so cool is I work in the halls of the Pacific in a publicly visible conservation lab. So I headed over there, right next to the Mallory House, to my lab to get started for the day. My project this summer was to rehouse and image a collection of 200 woven Pacific mats. So these mats had been rolled very tightly on non-archival tubes, which means that those tubes might have been acidic and they might have degraded those mats further while in storage. So we are creating new custom archival tubes, which I'm doing right now. I'm cutting them down to the correct length. I grabbed lunch in the Field Bistro downstairs, which always has really yummy food, but it was low-key always very expensive, so I tried not to do that, but I had to today. And then after lunch, we had a delegation from New Zealand come. A few of their members participated in a pōwhiri, which is a Maori welcoming ceremony. In conjunction with representatives from various Native American tribes who in turn sang and drummed for the Maori delegation and the audience. And it was just really amazing to get to see and be a part of. After work, I walked to the Loop to watch the Chicago Symphony Orchestra perform the entirety of John Williams' soundtrack to The Return of the Jedi, which, as a Star Wars fan and a classical music fan, it was just ecstasy. It was amazing. So every morning, if I got there early enough, I tried to walk through at least part of an exhibit. So this morning, I went through the Northwest Coast and Arctic Peoples exhibit, which was huge, crazy. And by the end of the summer, I actually had gone through every exhibit in the museum. I hadn't read all of the wall text, but I'd at least seen everything in the museum. So today, my coworker and I laid out some of the Pacific mats to photograph them. We were using a technique called photogrammetry, which involves taking overlapping photographs of an object and converting those photographs into 3D digital models. This technique is so important for this project particularly because these mats are fragile and we want to reduce any instance of unrolling them. So if researchers or curators want to see a specific mat, we will be able to provide them with a high quality image rather than having to unroll the mats, some of which are literally falling apart and crumbling into dust as we move them around. For lunch, the conservation and collections departments grabbed pizza and sat outside for a bit because the weather was really nice. And then after lunch, it was right back to work. So here I'm doing the second part of the photogrammetry process, which involves using Agisoft Metashape to mosaic those images we just took and lay them over a 3D model. The final stage in this process is cleaning up these images in Photoshop and putting them into the museum's database, KEMU, for other people's future reference. On Tuesdays, I'd usually head up to Oz Park to play spike ball, and if you watch my last vlog, you know that I'm a big spike fan. And not just because it's a very fun and social way to get exercise, but also because as somebody in my pre-program period, I have had to move around a lot, even in just the past 12 months. And so I think it's really important for pre-program students to have a hobby that can travel with them and help them find community quickly, even if it's just for a few months. I decided to take a walk through the Rocks and Meteors section of the Field Museum, which made me feel like I was in a middle school science textbook from the 50s. But I learned a lot, and I had a great refresher on geology. Love that. And so I headed back through the halls of the Pacific to start the day. Today was Tube Transportation Day. So here, me and my coworkers are taking the freshly rolled tubes down to the collection center, which I'm unfortunately not able to show. But just imagine that scene at the end of Indiana Jones where there's tons and tons of shelves of tons of different artifacts. During lunch, we sat outside the field to see the Blue Angels rehearse for Chicago's annual Air and Water Show. And I didn't end up going this year, but it was just as good to, kind of sit outside and watch the planes fly overhead. It's really loud. After lunch, we were taken on a tour of the exhibitions department, which included the reproductions workshop and the graphic design department, among others. It was really great to see some of the different departments in the museum. There's just so many different types of jobs that exist within the museum field. I then headed out for the day and ran into the famous cupcake vending machine. The cupcake absolutely sucked, but it was a really cute aesthetic, really great. And then I went out with a couple of coworkers to a themed pop-up bar that changes themes every couple of months. This time it was Jurassic Park, and they had Jurassic Park themed cocktails, and I tried the famous Chicago shot, the Malort shot, and everyone hyped it up saying it was so bad. It wasn't that bad, it was fine. Don't let anyone tell you different. I commuted home, which is like usually it usually would take me like 30 to 45, I would take 45 minutes to an hour to get home every day, which was fine. So Thursday morning, I walked through the African exhibit, which was very, very maze-like. Honestly, every exhibit in this museum, you just like keep going farther and farther back, and you're like, literally, when does this end? The like square footage on this museum is insane. And then today was Integrated Pest Management Day, which we put these traps around the lab every month and check them to see the quantity and the location of different pests to see if we may have an infestation. We didn't, but we did have a huge cockroach. Today we were working on treating a mat that had split down the middle both latitudinally and longitudinally, and we stabilized the woven mat by cutting minuscule strips of Japanese tissue about 1/2 inch long and 1/8 inch wide, and adhered those strips across the tear in the mat, aligned with each of the plant fibers. This way the mat remained flexible because the strips aligned with the plant fibers, but it was still far sturdier than before. And we adhered these strips to the mat using carboxymethylcellulose, which is like a gel-like adhesive, like a clear glue. But it is reversible. It is like soluble in water, so if necessary, this treatment can be undone. During lunch, we stopped downstairs to watch an angklung performance. So this instrument is a traditional Indonesian instrument, and each instrument only plays one note, so you really do need a whole like orchestra of people playing this to create a song. And then I headed to Millennium Park to hit one of their free concerts with one of my friends. We've already established I'm a big classical music fan, so when I heard that there's a free Chicago Symphony Orchestra concert going on and they were performing Symphony Fantastique, I was like, I have to go! And it was really beautiful. It was all outdoors, the weather was lovely, and afterward my friend and I hit the Howard Washington Library to go in one of their piano practice rooms. Anyway, it's Friday. The town was gearing up for Lollapalooza, and so there was fences all around museum campus, but I found a way and I just had to take a different route. I went through the ecological conservation section of the museum this morning, which is actually right next to the Halls of the Pacific, and after that we went to an intern appreciation breakfast. And again, it's always great to meet people from different parts of the museum because they're doing such different work than we are. Some of them work in repatriation and curation. And on Fridays, we always listen to like only Disney music. So we decided today to just like put on Coco while we were treating mats. Today we continued work on the same mat, but this time we were stitching polyester bobinette onto a few really large holes to stabilize them and ensure they don't tear any further when they're being rolled or when they're being handled after put in storage. And that was that. That's the work week. After work, I went up north to try out the restaurant where the smash hit The Bear was filmed. I was really, really hyped to have the Italian beef. I googled it. I looked on Google and asked when it was open. It said it was open till 6. I was so excited. I was so hungry. And I got there. It was not open till 6. I don't know what Google was saying. I was really mad. But I went out with some friends instead. Chicago has a really great comedy scene, so we went to an improv bar. It was an improv show that was Jane Austen themed, and I wasn't expecting to like it, but it was quite funny. I really enjoyed it. So Saturday is for the boys. And by that I mean I went to the beach to play spike ball, because you can never get enough spike. And the beaches are actually pretty nice. Coming from Florida, I was not expecting them to be this good. After showering, I went to the Museum of Contemporary Art, saw some Alexander Calder and some Nick Cave, and that was that. That was my week. If you have any questions about the field of art conservation or my experience at the Field Museum of Natural History or anything else, please DM me on Instagram or leave a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll see you guys soon.